Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the internet, and welcome to another episode of Fanalysis, Avatar The Last Airbender. I'm Callan, this is Matt.
Hello.
And this is Evan.
Hi, everyone.
Summarising the Puppetmaster, Matt.
Okay, yeah, this is Avatar The Last Airbender, Book 3, Episode 8, right? It's been a while since we did one of these. Okay, and it's entitled The Puppetmaster. And this is
the prerequisite horror episode of the season.
Yeah, this is like and I'm sure it aired around Halloween time when it first came out. This is like this is like the Halloween episode of Avatar. It is
very fitting.
Spooky, it's one of my personal favorite episodes as well, because waterbending is totally my jam, and this is the episode that clinched it. So anyway, and also I think with the probable exception of the Southern Raiders, which is later this season, it's my second favorite Katara centric episode in the series, personally. But anyway, so this one
most
opens.
would agree with that.
Yeah, and if not, everybody's entitled to be wrong. But
exactly, but they are wrong.
Yeah,
we open with the gang telling spooky stories. Before the prerequisite old man / woman in the woods turns up.
Just to kind of set the theme, in case you didn't already know that this was going to be the horror episode, we open with ghost stories.
Yeah, it's like Sokka's telling some shitty ghost story that totally sucks.
And then Katara gets into it, and she actually tells one that's kind of creepy and does kind of relate to things that happen later.
I love
on,
her voice, by the way.
There.
I love her voice when the impression she gives. It's like that was really funny. Nice added touch to it.
Mm-hmm. Makes you wonder who she heard that story from growing up. Maybe if it was her mom or her dad or something.
Yeah, well, I mean, she says it specifically involves her, so whether or not that's who she heard it from, we don't know. But yeah, it was a good story. Got the others invested before Toph declared that she could hear screaming from beneath the mountain, because of course she can. I like that they give. I mean, we joke about the old person in the woods obviously coming out and
bit
of a trope in this series.
Yeah, exactly. Presenting the plot to the gang, but at least in this one, there's an excuse for them being out in the woods. She's specifically coming back from said prison that Toph's just heard. So it makes sense that he's turned up. But she does turn up and present, "Hey, I'm the plot for the episode. Look at me," and brings them back to the
Hama.
Brings them back to the inn, and
I'm sorry. I think it's Tress MacNeil is voicing her, but whoever is voicing Hama did an amazing job.
Absolutely amazing job. Yeah.
She sounds genuinely creepy without coming off as like cheesy. I mean, she definitely gives off that kind of that like Wicked Witch vibe towards the end, but by then it's kind of earned.
Yeah, Tress MacNeil. She's like voice actors legendary tier. She's done everything from like small bits in The Simpsons to. She's been in literally like everything. You know what I mean? Like she's one of those top brass voice actresses in Hollywood.
And like you say, Evan gives a good job of riding that line between over the top and under kind of understated. It does a good job. Matches it as well, the animation and the character design of the character. Like there's a lot of over the top shots in this because horror styling, and it keeps it kind of slightly grounded in that kind of in the delivery of her lines and stuff, and then the creases of her face. Very nicely done.
Because her actual design isn't like necessarily that like radical.
No,
she does come off as unassuming at first glance, which is kind of the point.
Yes.
Aside from the razor sharp.
Yes, but those aren't like readily apparent. So
the big scene later is like that one shot of her face when she's like really like nuts. And that's when they went like that looks like feature film quality animation. Though, like they put all of the effort into that.
This is definitely one of the budget episodes where they've like poured the money in and well spent.
And you could definitely tell there's probably some horror fans in the behind the scenes who worked on this as well. Because there's so much homage to that genre here, both overt and subtle, which is really nice.
I don't think you can find an animation studio where like everyone in there isn't like a horror nut because it's so visual. You know what I mean? Like people, they all love that stuff. But anyway,
cinema in general,
Yeah. But so they go back home with Hama. She fixes them dinner, or no, like they go shopping first, right?
They have the markets.
Well, they sleep there, and then
you mentioned before
we get a hilarious shot of Sokka, by the way, who like he's in bed and he hears like an animal and he gets spooked and he's like, oh, Momo, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to go to bed tonight. And then it immediately like smash cuts to him like asleep on his bed, like, and it's hilarious. And actually, no, it's not a smash cut. It's actually like one of those like film strip reel transitions. It's very weird because it's like you never really see anything like that in this series. But it just makes the joke. I was about to say it makes the joke all the funnier because you don't see it coming, which is something else we should point out too. Is like even though this is a quote unquote like horror episode, it still keeps to the general charm and general tone of the series overall. It doesn't come off as being completely out of place, you know.
Yeah, there's a lot of good humor beats in this, particularly early on, and particularly surrounding, as usual, soccer. So that was cool. I like that shot in particular. The cut down is typical. He's down. Even to the point where he flops out of bed immediately afterwards. It's just funny. But we have the market.
But then they go shopping.
Going through and getting the kind of background. I like the jump to the conclusion of it must be a spirit thing. This is very clearly spirit shenanigans. You know, the way it's being told to them in the background.
Something that we know exists at this point. Obviously.
Yeah, and they've actively dealt with, and they're actively meant to deal with. You know, so it was a nice undercurrent of like a micro red herring for the younger audience. Who don't know what's going on.
They did it. The structure is very good. It's kind of like in a horror movie. If you've seen more than a few, you can kind of tell what's up. Like,
exactly.
Like this character is shady, or there's something wrong here. But the misdirect is good. You know, for newcomers to it, and also the younger audience that this is aimed at initially. You know.
Yeah. And speaking of the suspicious character, you know, this is where Sokka picks up on like the slightly overt creepiness of Hammer. I'm thinking, okay, something's up here. I'm going to go snooping. And then obviously,
which he does.
Yeah, has cause.
Which gives us to the next scene of them going through the house. Oh, sorry, Callan.
And I like as well the fact that you've got that cliche creepiness of, oh, look, puppets, but it fits the character because obviously
which never gets explained, by the way. Yeah, that never gets explained.
Yeah, I would love it.
She's the idea of she's using it to practice her puppeting techniques, right? Clearly.
Maybe.
I know, but it's like once you find out about her backstory, it's like, how does this relate in any way to what you do? You know,
I would love for them to have said, well, what's with the puppets in the closet? I have no idea. This was there when I got here. You know, that would have been great. You know, because it really she got out of jail and bought a bunch of puppets. Okay,
you know? Yeah, just
a little odd.
Broke into the inn, you know, killed the original owner and took his and left the puppets in the cupboard. No, it's pretty funny.
But then we get like they find a little chest that they think has something.
Which violate her privacy, by the way.
Yes,
which is you know a horrific crime as portrayed in the show. But also, why does she have an entire room dedicated to a tiny box with a tiny little comb in it? I mean, I feel like this was unnecessary.
It's a little on the nose, yeah.
This is very much like, okay, we have to give the gang something to do. Like, we have to preserve the mystery somehow, and this is what they came up with. But it could be construed as she's just fucking with them because she knows that they're going to do something like this. So that comb has been like somewhere else in the house forever, and she just made a whole big bit of business about it. You know,
as I was sleeping, she cleared the room out of furniture, and okay, this is like a real cool reveal moment.
Yeah. It does kind of come off as a little bit Scooby-Doo-ish in that scene.
I mean, it's horror styling, you know, even down to the shot of the camera when they open the door and have it kind of zooming on this very small box at the center of the room. It's supposed to be that kind of like Matt said before, the homage to the style. So we get that. We get the explanation, her backstory, which I love. This is one of the best flashbacks.
She's from the Southern Water Tribe.
That's not centrally related around one of the main characters. It's one of my favorite backstories and flashbacks because you get the nice styling of multiple stylings of the kind of different raids and how she's losing her people and her comrades in the fight.
And that ship is in the first episode.
Yes, exactly.
They never needed to explain that, but it was cool that they built upon that, you know, showing where that came from. Again, not necessary, but in an organic way, you know. And sometimes you shouldn't explain every little thing about your setting.
Absolutely.
But when you can find an organic way to slip it in like that, it's a perfect touch, and that was nice.
Right. It doesn't come off as just like, oh, hey, remember this? No, it actually it feels very natural.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not like it's something they dwell on anyway.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not a big point. Oh, look how clever we are for making continuity. It's just a case of, oh, this would logically be when that happens, so let's throw it in. You know, it's a cool stark visual for the flashback and raising specifically to her. And I like how they do it's not just the one shot of how of them fading out in the background and she's just left alone. It's like multiple fights with multiple kind of pullings away. It's clearly showing an extended period of time, which fits the consistency of the show, makes it more dramatic, makes it more emotional for her, etc. So, and bigs her up as a character.
Yeah, considering what she does end up becoming, it's clear she was not like born crazy. You know what I mean? Like
No, I was
she
I was about to say that this episode as a whole is like a really kind of good representation of like how war is like there's no positive aspect to
yeah,
it, and how war can destroy you without necessarily physically killing you, you know? Like
yeah,
it like you said, like we don't get like a great like look at who she was back then, but it is pretty obvious that she would not have become this if the war had never happened. And I like
yeah,
that too because it also kind of adds some, you know, obviously we've gotten like lots of flashbacks in the past about, you know, this war that's been raging for so long to this point, but I like the fact that it really just kind of makes the war seem like a real global event, which, you know,
yeah,
obviously it is, which is just
yeah.
nice, you know.
I mean, to the Southern Water Tribe, not the Northern, obviously, but to the Southern Water Tribe, it's one step shy of what happened to Aang's people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As far as the bending side of it is concerned. Yeah, and even really, there's not that many people down there until like the Korra series. You know, it doesn't seem like it's all just some women and children, and it doesn't look like a terribly large group. Of course, that could be just the limitations of what they could show at that stage in the animation. You could like make it so that canonically there were more people than there, but it looks like just a real shanty town. But it shows the whittling down of that, and how you do need that explanation. I don't know if it's been mentioned up to this point in the series because it's been a while since we've seen the older episodes at this point. But I don't remember them ever explaining why Katara was the only one around who could do it. It wasn't like a convenience for the sake of the story thing. It wasn't a complaint. It was just something that we should have had an explanation for at some point, and here we got one. So
exactly,
yeah,
and it's very nice and
so
dramatic.
So once they learn like she's a waterbender, obviously Katara takes to her very quickly. And they've had like, I mean, it's already been shown up to this point that she's closest to Hama out of everybody to begin with. But once they see that kind of solidifies it for her, and Hama starts training her. And we get some of the most impressive waterbending ever in this episode, and it's so great.
It's very cool for that.
This is so there's a couple things about this. Like, what you were saying about the connection between them, I like that a lot because considering we already referenced it earlier, or I did with the Southern Raiders episode, but that point you made about how war can sort of hollow somebody even if it doesn't kill them. Katara faces that hurdle later this season, and so Hama's kind of like a, what do you say, like a foreshadow of what she could become. You know what I mean? Before we're even really faced with that plot line. So that's really well done as far as storytelling. That's the right order. You know what I mean? It's like you don't know Katara is going to come up against what she deals with later if it's your first time going through the series. So it really bigs up that real potential for her to really lose the light, even forgetting the dark tool that she gains in this episode, even though that does come up again. But there's that. But also, I remember what's his name, the Wan Tong, the I can't remember how to pronounce it, the owl spirit from the library. He mentioned that he knew Southern style waterbending.
Yes,
what I mean? When he was, and that it never really came up again, I don't think. But here, like this is the opportunity to learn that, and some of these techniques, I'm sure, it makes sense for like Southern tribe people who have it like a little harder, it seems, and who have been more directly affected by the war to have come up with some of these things are like the really like
brutal.
They're assuming you're in a position of hardship. You know what I mean? And the Northern style is more, say, classical, or just you got like this endless supply of water around. Her stuff is a lot more, it doesn't all have this dark undercurrent to it, but they get progressively more sinister as she's showing them, and the implications get more and more
really kind of pushing the boundaries of pragmatism and where that line kind of falls for you as an individual. And it's clear even very early on that she, in the fact that they're just flowers, she's you can tell that she's someone who's stepped away from the light and has gone down the beaten track a ways from the very first kind of lines, even before she starts getting truly sinister. It's well executed and subtle.
I mean, dying flowers have been symbolism in media since like forever. So
I mean, just from the representation of them being life,
she made a point of them being special, and then ultimately she's willing to sacrifice them for an end. You know what I mean? Right. Like, and most magical old people are like, preserve the flower at all costs. You know what I mean? But,
and I like that it also sets up the end result for Katara's own personal choice as well, because she's making multi-layered choices to kind of take more steps down that path when she needs to, when she's faced with that practical kind of moral crisis, the same way Hannah did, but she still comes to a separate conclusion.
Yeah, which kind of leads us into.
Or just real quick on that that montage scene, right, where she's showing her all these things. At that point, the show was like massively popular. You know what I mean? Before that, everyone liked Avatar, but it was still. I mean, we're talking. This is airing in 2007, 2008, somewhere. And this is toward the end of the show's life span on in its initial debut viewing, right? Airing. Up to that point, like word of mouth, everybody who knew about it was like into it, but it was just kind of like a newer show, there was no Netflix, there was no streaming sites or whatever. It was on television, right? And it wasn't it was new, and so like there were adults who knew about it, but they tended to be people like adults who liked anime and animation in general. It wasn't like this thing that had entered the public consciousness. Oh, this is the number one cartoon, the way that instantly people go to nowadays. It's either this or Batman the Animated Series are called as the number one American cartoon, right? It's just instant. Nobody thinks about it anymore. Back then, this was like the start of that, where it was beginning to to have that clout. And in the middle, or in between, because they used to air like only like half seasons, like at a time, I think. And there had been like a gap of time, and people were like just writing stuff on forums and wikis and all that, coming up with, people were just making their own stuff up about what you could do with waterbending, specifically because it had never come up before that the human body is largely composed of water. I've never seen it something be like everybody's talking about, oh, well, theoretically you could do this, and then it actually becomes a thing in the show, you know what I mean, or whatever, book series, whatever. But in this case, it was just weird seeing all that fan headcanon shit have a whole episode devoted to it. We're like, look at all this, what you can do with it. And it was like, oh, this is so awesome. Particularly,
and it wasn't just throwaway for the sake of doing it. They attached kind of the emotional, moral component, not only for this episode, but the follow-up later on, with Katara's Katara's big Katara episode. It's good. They did a really good job with
Katara this season. But
which kind of leads us into the second half of the training, which takes place at night, because Hama very specifically wants to show Katara something that takes place, during the full moon, because obviously it's been long since established at this point that waterbenders are at their most powerful during the full moon.
I mean, I don't know. Does she just not kill these people because it's a kid show? Why is she?
I think so. Yeah.
Some of those people have been there for quite some time. If she can only do this once a month, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, some of those people have just been there for a long time for no reason.
Like food, water, like what?
I mean, she's an innkeeper, so she's got source stuff. But it is a bit odd. It's purely the fact that it's a kid show, really, because they can't. There's no way for them to show the whole I'm actively going to kill these people and have been doing for years. Without
every now and then, it's mildly distracting in Avatar. Like when I think Azula once threatened to destroy somebody instead of killing them, which is really what she obviously meant. But they can't
censors. You have to kind of work around that to the best of your ability. But but also but while we get into that, the rest of the gang is back in town trying to figure out like what's going on.
Meeting Old Man Ding, which, by the way,
and
fantastic we get like a character. I loved his performance and like the whole moment. He was like, "Why do they keep calling me old anyway? I'm not getting that old." I loved it.
And his design is hilarious too.
He's just so animated,
it's great.
It's just fun alongside the rest.
You could tell whoever was playing him was having a blast. But we sort of get our first hints of kind of like what's going on. Like him explaining like, I couldn't control my body, but once the sun came up, I was able to, and it happened over there. And the rest of the gang is like, okay, let's go up there and see what's going on. And that's where they find the cave with all the prisoners in it. And
there's that going for it, actually, because he specified that he was free when the sun came out. It means that she was pushing the boundaries a bit, so she wasn't like just doing it at the height of the night. So she probably takes multiple people in a single
Exactly.
moon cycle. So there's that.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Yeah, which leads us to like the main crux of this, where we get to the final well, not yeah, the what leads into the final battle, essentially, with Katara and Hama discussing, and we get the rest of Hama's backstory as well, and we get the invention of bloodbending.
Yeah, and it's interesting
Which
how it
should
kind of
be
naturally...
a thing, by the way. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it should be. Like that was
Like,
what the fan.
like she was the
theory-
first to come up with this. Yeah.
Yeah, first to...
that's what I mean. It's like,
it's almost certainly one of those arts that got lost and refound and lost along the way. Like people who wouldn't want to declare that, "Oh, look at me, I'm a human puppet master" kind of thing. It wouldn't be shouted about
unless there's something wrong with you. You know what I mean? Like you just would not, especially in peacetime. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which as far the way, especially the way this show, I know that everybody's this world is getting fleshed out with more and more stuff because it's so popular now. But the way that Katara frames it, with like how everything's all fine before the Fire Nation attacked, it's like you would never need this, or if you even in Korra, when you get like the weird Airbender stuff with like the Guru Lakima, like that doesn't sound like a good dude to me. You know what I mean? Who came up with all that? If you inspired Zahir, you're probably not.
You've probably gone
guy,
a little bit off the bar.
Yeah. So it's like coming up with these really extreme variants. It's just most people would never have had cause to pursue it.
Yeah. And I will say the episode does a great job of just selling the visceral horror of it, and just like the morality around that. Like
there's no reason why she can't
Katara, like the horror on Katara's face when she sees it happen is like, wow. Like, I mean, you can just tell what she's feeling at that point. And it makes sense too, because you are literally taking control of somebody against their will, and
yeah, and it's not just like mind control where it's you're telling them to do something, they just the electrical impulses tell them to do it. You're physically manipulating, pulling the water out towards the edge of your arm, so it's being forced out by pain and muscle movement and stuff. And it's really like,
it can't feel good.
Yeah, just you can imagine like the horror of the blood moving around the wrong way and the muscle spasming. It's it is not a pleasant.
Also, we don't see this happen obviously, but we do have the scene earlier with the flowers getting all the moisture sucked out of them.
There's no reason why she can't.
She can do that to people.
Or far more easily, just freeze it. You know what I mean? Like, there's no reason why she shouldn't be able to do that.
Move all of the blood out of your heart and stuff. It's got some really horrible implications based purely on the fact of the individual's intent and skill level. So that's all. It's very well executed. I like the fact as well that it took a long time to develop. It took her years to fully master. Don't so much like the fact that Katara can do it in like 2 seconds with no education.
I don't
like
that
that's like a hand wave thing.
Better, or you know what I mean? I've always kind of.
The implication is that her natural abilities are stronger, which means she can overpower. But it is very hand wavy to say that.
But that's kind of like almost like just like a willpower thing. It seems like, or something. Like
a little inconsistent.
Although I guess it does establish that that's like a thing, because in Korra that's still how it works. There's when you had this is way ahead, but the Amon Tarlok thing, you have an active master bloodbender who can't undo it just because one's better at it. You know what I mean? Like there's no other reason why he could undo that. But anyway,
do they ever explain how like that became widespread later in the future?
They don't explain so I'm not the right person to ask anymore, because there's so much ancillary.
Because as far as because it's kind of implied in this episode that Hama and later Katara are the only ones in the world who can do this.
But
did Katara pass it on and it just got out? I don't get it.
There's something about the fact that the Yakon who's the father of Tarlok and Amon. There was something about him where he specifically said to have had a quote unquote psychic technique. I don't know why that was developed. I think that was kind of,
they use the term to describe the people who can do bending without physical movement. It's because they needed of course a label for that, rather than just master. But they kind of reworked it specifically.
It's kind of the thing is, it didn't need to be a terrible idea, and it wasn't really terribly executed. It's just very sparse, and it feels just like a writer waved their wand, and that was it.
We need blood.
They could have made a lot more bit of business out of it. That's really my only real weakness. This is a small tangent, like 30 seconds. of book one of Korra. There are things that would have made it better here and out, but my biggest one is I just wanted an Amon backstory, and in that I would have liked to have had the also joint explanation of how Yakone did this and why. You know what I mean? Because they don't address that. If it's answered in some comic book or whatever, I don't know.
I don't believe it has been yet from my little ruminations.
I'm
but
the last person to know because I don't.
If they tied it to Katara in some way, that would have been an interesting plot line.
She wouldn't be teaching it to anybody though. It's just purely wouldn't.
No, I'm not saying it would make sense for a character, but if they did do something like that, it would have been interesting.
The easy hand
I would have
wave
liked
aside
her
from people
legend to have been the inspiration for it, because she uses it on people that she doesn't kill. So there's no reason why that story cannot spread. That story would spread. You know what I mean? It's like, do you know what they can do now, or like what they're doing? Like, I mean,
that demon child, the enemy kind of thing. But
speaking of killing, Hama tries to straight up murder Aang with Sokka's sword.
She goes
literally. There's a point where they're like colliding, and Sokka has his sword out. If Katara didn't do anything, Aang would have straight up died.
I think the implication is that she's not actively trying to kill them. She's just trying to force Katara's hand, because the point of this for her is to.
Well, she's really going hard with trying to make a point. Then.
Yeah, well, I mean, she could just stop at the last minute, but the idea is that she's forcing Katara's hand to make this, part of her own arsenal.
That's the genius of it.
I guess so.
You can make the argument that she's like the only villain who really gets what she wants by the end of this show. That's what she wanted. She won. Was for her knowledge to be passed on.
Congratulations,
which is another reason
Katara.
why
You're a blood bender.
The
tears.
And her reaction to that is just wow.
It's a really strong ending for it.
Yeah. So it's a really that's I'm not really making a stupid pun, but that is what makes it a haunting story, because it sticks with you, like she won.
Yeah, that's how they defeat her. Like, that's literally all there is. Katara bloodbends her to stop her from killing Aang and Sokka.
And the actual animation on the fight, and the fact that it used the technique she taught her, like pulling water out of the trees and shit like that. I mean,
and not just like using them, but using them so viscerally. Like, she just rips those trees out of existence by sapping their water, and and with the spin and the impact pass, and everything was so creative and so well animated and kind of unique, because we've seen so many different kind of styles of waterbending and manipulated forms that they use for the attacks and defense, and this is still new. They've not gotten old with it. It's not just a lazy let's make a water orb or something. They're all great shots, great choreographed designs. It's brilliant.
They carry on with that with Korra. I mean, they love water. They were awesome with water. It's an
animator's nightmare as well, but dream in terms of like visual displays. They do some really
cool stuff.
Fire is just kind of fire. Earth is really like just kind of earth. They have some awesome earthbenders. They do, but it's always what they're doing with their physicality. A rock is a rock. You know what I mean? What you can do to the water is like, there's just so much variance. Awesome.
Very cool. And I like that this isn't this as an episode by itself, purely by itself, would have been fantastic. But the fact that it's the springboard kind of starting point for the Dark Katara situation later on is brilliant. They truly kind of work it in as like a subplot to the second half of the series of the book 3 series. So
it's not just horror for the sake of horror.
Yeah. And I loved how sympathetic she is in this one, because there's times throughout this season, especially, where she's been on my nerves and where she pushes it too far, or where she's even just kind of needlessly cruel. At some point, I think it is in the same episode, she'll tell Sokka something along the lines of he doesn't care as much about their mother as she does.
Yeah.
And that's just fucked up.
She doesn't hold back when she's pissed.
I know, and she knows, because she knows better. That she'll say what she wants to say to make a point or to win an argument, and that's what makes it wrong. But especially after what she overheard in The Runaway. I mean, how dare you, Katara? But
exactly.
Anyway, but yeah, amazing episode. Personal favorite of mine. I think we're about ready for the wrap up, right?
Absolutely. Yeah,
fantastic. Like I said, fantastic episode. Easily one of the best of the season. Like Callan said, springboard for so much in the future. Just solid. And if you're a fan of horror, you'll love it.
Yeah. It's just fantastic.
Is the show 61 episods? Is it? Or 60?
I think so. Yeah.
Something like that.
It's in my. It would easily make my top 10. Like out of.
And I think that's true of most people. Like, I can't imagine anybody who hates this episode. It's pretty damn perfect.
You're not entitled to be that wrong. You can't. You just. That's a crime. Yeah.
But definitely one of our favorites. Definitely in the top 10 for each of us, I think. And an interesting one to cover directly before the follow-up. Join us next week.
We're going to be switching some gears pretty hard. Yeah. I mean, there are some themes that carry over somewhat, but
there
yeah,
are a lot of references
drastic...
in styling, if one thing. But we'll get to
that.
This has been Puppetmaster. I am Callan, and I still have an outro.
This is Matt. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day.
Evanova95. We hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you guys later.
Goodbye.